Number 7. WPSs and PQRs are governed by essential, supplementary, and non-essential variables. Essential variables, conditions in which a change is considered to affect the mechanical properties of the joint. So an essential variable would be, like I was just saying with that amperage, right? So let's say we had 150, we were running at 150 amps, 10% would be 15, so 22 and a half. We're at 172 and a half. That would be the max on the high side we could run. Well, maybe we want to run 200 instead of 172. Well, because we're outside of that, outside of the essential variables for amperage, we have to go and requalify. So we'd have to go and run another test. Yeah, so our procedure at that point only proves that we're going to get the proper tensile strength and everything else up to 172 and a half. If we want to run 200, we're going to have to go get another test coupon, redo the whole thing, right, at 200 amps, and then go send it off, get the results back from the destructive testing, and then we could create another WPS. Right? So that voltage and that amperage, those are essential variables. So if we want to change those or step outside of what's available to us, we have to requalify the entire test. And there'll be a list of these essential variables in different codes. Yeah, and there'll be some things that you can get by with, and there's other things. Yep. So the next one is supplementary variables, conditions in which a change is considered to affect the toughness properties of the joint, heat affected zone, or base metal. So these are supplementary. When we send in our test to get our destructive testing done, if we have them do a Charpy impact test, if we have them do that, the supplementary variables now become essential variables. Right. So if we go and have a Charpy impact test done, yeah, exactly, and that becomes those becomes essential variables at that point. Then those supplementary variables aren't essential variables; they're non-essential. Yeah. You could take this set of variables, and if you don't run a Charpy impact, they're non-essential. If you do run one, they become essential. Non-essential variables, conditions in which a change is not considered to affect the mechanical properties of the joint. So an example of one of those is changing the gas flow, right? So in section 9, you could take and you're going to run the same type of gas, but the flow itself, like I think at one point, one place I was working at, we were running like a 29 or 20 CFH to like 60 or CFH or something like that, right? And we were purging, so we needed to have the ability to run at like 90 to 100 CFH. And our third-party inspector was like, well, your procedure doesn't say you can do that. So I had to go through and, since the gas pressure was a non-essential variable, I just had to go in there and edit it and go from 20 to 60 to 20 to like 100. And then I just changed my revision number. I didn't have to requalify the whole thing because it was non-essential. I just had to go in there and edit it. Just change my revision number. And move forward. I didn't have to requalify because it was non-essential variable. All right, number 8, changes to WPS PQRs. Changes to a WPS may be made in non-essential variables to suit production requirements without requalification, provided the changes are properly documented. Just talking about that. Non-essential variable, I changed it, changed my reference number on there, and revision number on there. Changes to supplementary and or essential variables requires requalification of the WPS. So if we change an essential variable, we have to go back through and requalify the whole dang thing again. We don't necessarily want to do that. We want to try and keep all of our welding procedures as broad as possible, covering as much as possible. That way we don't have to sit here and write a whole bunch of procedures on things. We want to try and cover as much as we can. Next one, changes to a PQR are not allowed except for minor editorial changes. So like I said, the PQR is the recorded data of what happened during the welding and testing process. That's why it can't be changed, is it's the actual data. Right? If we say we ran 150 amps, we can't go back and change that. That's what happened. Yeah, similar to that right there. I think what they're really talking about here is like typos. All right, let's look number 9. P numbers. P numbers are employed for welding procedure qualification. P numbers are assigned to base metals depending on characteristics such as composition, mechanical properties, and weldability. Materials that exhibit similar characteristics are grouped within the same P number. Main purpose is to reduce the number of welding procedure qualifications required. P numbers are further divided into group numbers based upon notch toughness properties. Okay, so we have P numbers in ASME. So like P number 1, that's just regular carbon steel. Your P5s are your chromes, P8s are like stainless steels. So the reason we group these together, or ASME group these together, is we have, let's say we have a material like A36. It's a very common carbon steel, structural steel. And then let's say we did a weld test and we used A36 material, right? Well, if we didn't have these P numbers together, we would have to list all of the materials that we're qualified for since we did a test on A36. Or we would just be qualified to A36, which would be crazy. We'd have 10,000 welding procedures, at every company around if we did it that way. So with this, if we took a test on A36, structural steel, carbon steel, we could run SA 106B, which is a carbon steel pipe. We could run a SA 51670, which is a pressure grade plate that we make rolled and welded shells out of. So since we group these together with our procedures, if you qualify your carbon steel with any carbon steel on your procedure, you are qualified to anything under that P number, P number 1. All right. And that's for procedures. Number 10, general testing requirements. So this just kind of gives you an idea of welding procedure qualifications. We got to do some tensile tests, root bends, and toughness tests if required. The welder performance qualification, visual exam, 1 root, 1 face, or 2 side bends. We could do RT, and then toughness testing is not required for the welder himself. So it kind of gives you an idea there. All right, guys, you got ASME Section 9 Code Search 1. I sent over in an email. I also sent the ASME Section 9 Code Book over in an email. So I want you guys to go through that, answer all these questions, and then we'll go over that on Monday.